So for everybody out there who's been looking for me to do an actual full talk on this, there was going to be extra videos, and I'm sure there's going to be a million questions. But to get us started, I figured this would be the best way. I know the video's not short. You're going to find links for this product down below. You can order it through us here in Canada. You can order it from Blastking in the States. It may even be on Amazon. If it's in the links down below, we're going to make sure that those links get you to where you can buy the product. If you got questions or comments, especially on this system here, please leave them down below. We get a chance, we're going to be doing Q&As. Hi there, Robin here, and in this video we are talking about the Tower of Power from Blastking. Yes, this is the KXDIITP. Yes, and it does stand for Tower of Power. You're looking at 4,000 watts, 7.5 feet tall. I need a ladder to get up to the top of that. It is very tall, but most importantly, it is manageable. Each module, it's made of 4 modules, weighs 75 pounds each. This allows you to actually physically pick it up with only one person. There is a competitive product on the market that costs twice as much, and it delivers pretty much the same. Designed differently, different overall package, different overall look to it and configuration. But the idea is that this is built for those big shows, that big outdoor event that you're going to have 1,000 people at. Or maybe you need something for an auditorium, or you need something for a full gymnasium, or a theater environment where you're going to be entertaining 1,000-ish people. Now you can grow with this system. You start with maybe 2 packages, and then you go to 4 packages. That's really going to get you going. You can even easily go up to 6 of them. Why? Because it's not always convenient to throw up a full line array and have all the scaffolding and all the outrigging and everything you need to do that. If you need it for a 1, 2, or 3 day show, this might be the better way to go. So in this video, we're going to talk about everything to do with the Tower of Power. We're going to have a close look at the speaker itself, take the covers off, have a look-see at what's going on behind it, and we're going to even do a sound test. Not just a regular sound test, we're actually going to break out the actual sound meter, because the amount of volume you're going to get off of a system like this can only be experienced in person, in live. You have to be there to hear how enormous the power is out of a speaker like this. Now remember, 4,000 watts, that's RMS, that's not peak. If we were to actually make up the peak number, it'd probably be 16,000 watts. So that makes a big difference when it comes to overall volume. So why don't we take a closer look at what we're actually talking about? Again, the Tower of Power. So to make sure we cover all the details and we get it about as accurate as we possibly can, I do have a cheat sheet with me, as you can hear that. And it's going to allow me to make sure I get the numbers right, because I don't want to get the numbers too wrong here, and that's very important. So the dispersion rate on this system is 82 degrees horizontally and 88 vertically. So that gives us an incredible spread. So again, if we're doing a theater where we have a gradient of about, let's say, 15 to 25 degrees going up the stands, this is going to cover that no problem. Plus, because it comes down so quick, and that's kind of important, it comes down so quick, we only need to be about 8 to 10 feet away from it. Even though it's so tall, we're only really looking at about 12 feet before we get full mixture of the bass and the mid bass and the highs all together, so we get a nice smooth sound of the whole system. Again, it's very broad across the entire range. So again, we can cover a large area up close and far away. The system on top is bi-wired. So basically, yes, it is D-class power amp and bi-wired. And what that means is that, if I'm not mistaken, we do have a dedicated amplifier that is programmed for the horn. Then we have 2 of the 8-inch hooked up in parallel, and then 2 again hooked up in parallel. The bank on top and bottom are then hooked up in series, thus this giving us perfect balance in sound. We are going to be taking the cover off so you get a closer look at that, but I want to cover the overall features here first. Each individual cabinet is made out of plywood. It's Russian birch. It's very solid. It's very rigid. It's also very light, kind of a combination of what's going on there. It allows the unit to be very sturdy, easy to assemble, and durable when you transport. If you ding it, you know, things happen, but it's very, very strong. It has almost a rhino liner finish to it. Now it isn't exactly that, but it's that. It's like it's got a smooth surface to it, but it's got this rough sandpaper look to it when you actually get close. And we'll bring the camera up real close so you can see that. For the subwoofers, in this case, they run off of 2 18s, each one its individual cabinet, and each one generating 1,200 watts of power. KXD amplifiers are always built to handle way more than what we actually end up putting out. So that's very important because it's kind of like saying we have power in reserve. We're not going to take this speaker, bring it to its maximum volume, and worry that we're going to cook that amplifier on the backside. We'll also take a closer look at that amplifier later. The unit's also made out of full plywood. This allows it to have, again, the same rigidity and stiffness that we get up here, and it carries itself all the way down to the bottom. So let's put this speaker into perspective. We've got a 7.5 foot tall speaker, but how big is it really? This is something we're all familiar looking at. This is an Electro Voice ZLX 12BT or P, depending on which one you have. That's proportionally what we're talking about. Advertised at 1,000 watts of power, advertised at 4,000 watts of power. So we know this is peak power, this is RMS, so big difference. Let's have, again, a close look at the actual speaker, see what's going on, and then we'll talk about some of the amp plate features and how the whole thing works. And if you are looking for other great videos in this category, Blasting's got a huge selection of products. They'll all be linked to the actual Blasting playlist on our website. Now remember, the links are found down below for all the products as well. So when we take a close look at the front to side view on it, of course you're going to see the subwoofer and the two towers stacked on top of it. Now it's subwoofer on top of subwoofer. The two subwoofers are not connected together. One is sitting literally on the other. The bolting brackets are mounted right off to the side. You basically take some fly points off, put the brackets that, by the way, when you buy this as the kit, these are all included. Since the actual unit is built up of 4 separate modules, it's really easy for only one person to be able to put this together in about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how many times you put it together. Again, just take out the actual screws for the fly points, put these guys in their place. 75 pounds is a real easy module to assemble. So from this point of view, what you're going to see are the back brackets that secure the actual tops down to the subwoofers. Now again, that's all set up so this way you can easily put the brackets on. The fly points, again, are all pre-done. Loosen up the Allen screws, put the brackets on, put it all back together. And in the kit, when you buy it, you do get 2 full sets of casters. One full set for each subwoofer, which are all pre-done for you, so you can roll these subs wherever you need to go. So starting from the bottom up, we're going to start with the actual lower 18-inch subwoofer. Then we're going to move up to the second top 18-inch subwoofer. We're going to see the 2 tops. And then we're going to come up over the actual top of the unit. So now we're up to 7.5 feet tall, and you'll notice 2 mounting brackets on the top of the very unit. Holds everything together. Again, makes it all solid, it's safe and secure. You also notice additional fly points on the top of the unit. Fly points on the rear of the unit, working all the way back down. Here's our actual first look at the actual amplifiers on the unit. What's real important about this particular system is that it's multiple amp plates. You've got an amp plate on the back of the first, second, tower, plus you have one on the top subwoofer and on the bottom subwoofer. You can hook up this whole system to be a single XLR configuration, so this way you can just go into the first unit and, like I have it here, of course, jump into the second unit, which would be a normal setup, and then if we want to, we can come out of here and drop down to the subwoofers. On Blasting's units, you do get the option to turn off the front LED, so all the actual speakers have a button to turn the front LED blue light off. They also include a power light, signal light, and a limiter light across the top. The units also offer 5 DSP settings on it. Now this is important because we don't want to repeat this function on a second speaker. If we actually use the bridge cable, which, oh, by the way, also comes included, so you can connect the two together. If I choose to have this one in music mode because I'm not going to run it through an EQ, I can do that. But remember, on the next speaker, we're going to have that set up as a main. A main basically means running everything straight through it. We're not going to use any of these special functions on the actual back of the unit. So when we talk about the overall DSP settings, it does start with main, then it goes to music, which brings down the mid-range a little bit. Then we have an 80 Hertz high pass. So basically this will pull out and cut out any of the actual bass that's below 80 Hertz. Then we have speech mode. Then we have monitor mode. Now speech mode basically does the opposite to music. It's going to pull down on the highs and on the lows and bring up the mid-range, so this way the vocals are very clear. Now, if you decide to just plug a mic directly into the back of the unit, you do have the option to switch between line and mic mode by using the actual button. Now, this is going to change the impedance, and it's going to change the preamp setting on the gain controls. Just like all the KXDII series, we do have 2 line or mic inputs on the back of each unit. So again, linking it is going to be using the output of the first one. That's our main line coming in. This is going to be our main output. That's going to go into our secondaries and all the way through. If I decide I'm going to have 2 full sets on the left, 2 full sets on the right, or maybe more, I would just continue on linking all my tops and then all my subwoofers. Again, your choice if you want to run your tops separately from your subwoofers. I prefer to do that. This gives me more control over the overall sound. But again, I can simply just gain control and adjust it to the type of music I want to play and how much bass versus how much top I want to have going through the whole system. The actual system, it's all air cooled inside. There's all the fusing, it's all the cast aluminum plating on the back of it. So it's going to not need any fans to run the unit D class. Very efficient. I can hook up on one 15 amp breaker, so no standard power requirements needed. One standard 15 amp breaker, I can run 4 sets of these. So not one full set. I'm talking this whole set times 4 easily on one 15 to 20 amp breaker. So here we are on the back of the amp plate. Now, we do again have both subs hooked up together, and we have our main line coming in. Now that's because I've taken a choice for my hookup here to have the subwoofer run independently from the mains. I only need to utilize one line input, so here we are, our XLR coming in, and then we take our through pass, that's our XLR output, and we plug that into the second subwoofer located down below. For the inputs, I have it set at 8 out of 10. Now that's my choice because I know that my mixer and the equalizer that I'm running through it allows me to run this at between 7 and 8 without having the limiter light go on. Signal light will be on no problem, and then of course that's our power indication. Now it does have a normal and inverted. This is real important when you start getting into large quantities of subwoofers. If you're doing a stage setup for a band, you don't want to have all that bass on the actual stage. If you have 6 subwoofers, so that means you have a bank on the left, a bank on the right, so 2 on the left, 2 on the right. You may decide to have 2 in the center and then run those inverted. This will cancel the bass on the actual stage, allowing the performers to actually not have low end feedback on their system and not have all that bass coming up on the stage. So again, that's what the inverted option is for. And just like the main speakers on top, we do have the ability to turn off the front LEDs. So if you don't want them on, no problem. It's good to have them on when you're doing, if you're doing a front of house setup where you're 50 feet or 100 feet away from the actual system, you can actually see that blue light from a distance because you'll know your system's on or not. And remember, for overall, the programmed power capability is 1200 watts in the actual unit for the subwoofers and 800 watts for the tops. And for the actual power, 100 to 240 volts, 50 to 60 hertz, automatically adjusted internally. It's just the power cord that needs to be adjusted. Of course, if you're buying it in North America, you will be getting a standard AC power cord for North America, US, Canada use. So let's have a close look at what the speakers look like in the front. So here we've gone and taken the cover off of the actual unit. Now here is the cover itself. This is what we're talking about. So when you get the actual speaker, again, the Tower of Power from Blastking, you are looking at an 18-inch subwoofer, but the grill that covers it all doesn't show it through. Full metal honeycomb style mesh. It's very thick gauge. You're not going to get a lot of distortion out of it. And most importantly, with the diffuser in the back, we're not going to get any bad sound effects from the actual metal itself. So good thing here. It was screwed down not just in the front, but down the side as well, giving it a good secure placement. Now this is very impressive. As an 18-inch subwoofer goes, it is way smaller than everything else out there. Again, of course, it is an 18-inch subwoofer. For the cabinet size, just a little over 20 inches. So that really only gives us an inch on each side to finish off the box. The ports are placed in the corner. They also use this as a corner panel to reinforce the entire box. Again, all plywood, real important. They finished it not just on the outside, but all of the inside is also finished as well. The frequency response starts at 45 hertz. And of course, with that kind of frequency, you can play a lot of different types of music on it and get a lot of active sound out of the speaker. Now remember, they do program it through their amp plate to maximize the cabinet. So even though the cabinet is only 20 by 20 by about 24 on the depth, it is going to generate a lot of energy moving forward. The air goes to the back of the box, then comes back out on the four corners. That's why instead of wasting place at the bottom for a port on the side, they utilize the actual corners to make those ports happen. So big positive on this type of hardware. Plus remember, all plywood, that's very important. And because they minimized the amount of space an 18-inch driver actually requires to be in, it also took away from the weight. So a driver like this box would normally be close to 100 pounds. They've gotten it down to 75. Again, it's really all in the engineering to make sure that the box is solid without having to be any bulkier or bigger, or having any extra reinforcements. Everything has been engineered into the style of the box. The cross framing that supports and creates the actual baffles in the system are also what structurally hold the whole thing together. They've also added metal reinforcements on all the corners, 3 across the sides to reinforce the entire box, to give it a lot more stability so it won't basically blow itself up, I guess. But also, if you drop it, bang it, or hit it hard, you might cause some cosmetic damages, but you're not going to structurally change the actual box. And remember, you get 2 of those with it. Of course, you get the bottom 18 and you get the stacked 18 on top. They also, by the way, and this is a big, surprise, they also come with pole mounts on top of them, because this whole assembly, even though you buy 2 of them, hopefully you buy 2 full sets, it's the best way to go. You could actually buy 1 set to start off with, use subwoofer poles that you'll have to buy separately, and actually attach 1 column on top to a subwoofer and use a subwoofer pole to connect the whole thing together. This whole unit as a single mass is about 10 dBs louder than if you were to tear it apart and separate it by 12 feet. It's just the way the engineering and how sound works traveling through the air. Here's the actual top with the cover off. Of course, we're going to look at 4 actual 8-inch drivers in the unit. Now, this does have 800 watts total power. In the center, we've got our tweeter horn, which is 1 3/4 inches. So even though this is 4,000 watts, which is an enormous amount of power, and yes, I can get this to run at 110 dBs, no problem, dynamically. That means playing music through it with a meter. What do we look at? That's what we're getting out of it. If we are 60 feet away from the speaker, we're still getting 100 dB because of the volume of sound coming off of this one tower. Important is how they break up the power, though. Each individual tower has its own amplifier. So this versus the left side versus the top sub and the bottom sub, this has 138 dBs coming off of it. That's the SPL rating. On the sub, it's 137. So that's why we have 800, because there was no sense in having, 1,000 watts here and 1,000 watts there, that sort of thing. It wouldn't have evened out the power distribution as a dB rating goes, because that's most important. How do we get the sound off of this? How does it sound consistent? We don't want to force the top or force the bottom to keep up with the rest of the system. So this is all definitely built to be as one. So all 4 of the drivers, of course, the same. They're part of their Pro series, and they weigh roughly about 12 pounds each, which of course is all magnet. Now, when you look at this unit, this whole box was built around the fact of having something that would carry a large space. 4 drivers on this side, 4 drivers on the left side. I mean, you're talking 8-inch drivers in total. Again, huge amount of energy coming off of this, and that's the whole purpose. The bass is all generated with the bottom, so we have a mid bass to high frequency going on the tops, and it will carry over everybody. It will fill a large amount of space. When we actually look at the design of it, again, the idea was to maximize. These guys weigh roughly about 67 pounds to 68 pounds individually. How do they do that again? It's all made out of plywood. They've maximized the amount of driver. So how big of a driver can we actually get into this package versus the size of the cabinet we need to have? And then they program the amp plate to handle and manage all of that energy. To port the actual speakers, they've done it in between these 2 8-inch, and then on top again, it's ported for the top 2 8-inches. I think that we're looking at a parallel connection and a parallel and then hooked up in series or vice versa. At the end of the day, they're linking these speakers in pairs and then bringing the whole thing back to the amp plate. This allows it to have a proper impedance and also allows it to minimize the amount of stress it would end up putting on the amplifier. It needs that amp to drive 4 speakers because, of course, they're 8-inch each. We need the accumulation of all these speakers to generate all that energy. So when you actually start looking at investing into a system this powerful, besides having to manage like hook up the equipment that you have and being able to set it up, you also are now responsible for how loud it's actually going to be. Because now you're at a point where it's not, ooh, let's get it louder. It's how loud are we legally allowed to play a speaker like this? Now, amazingly enough, in the showroom here, because I can get this up to 110 dBs, I don't do that with customers around. It's just too loud. And amazingly enough, it surpasses the legal threshold of how loud I can play this system. Legally, in an actual public hall, where let's say people are having a wedding, or there's a conference, or a show, or a concert, I can get the entire space up to 100 dBs, but not 1 dB more. I can play it less, of course, but I can't play it higher. There are places, I know if I'm not mistaken, in the UK where it's actually 99. They don't want 100, they want 99 is their cap. And again, if you go to spots in the US, there are going to be limits on how loud you can play this. So it depends on where you are, of course, in the world watching this, and if you're going to get one of these. But regardless, once you get to a certain amount of power, you have to be responsible for managing how loud that sound is going to be. So having a system like this and having 4 of them instead of 2 of them allows you to evenly distribute that sound out. And this is definitely that piece of hardware that's going to fill the gap between buying just a regular portable power speaker versus buying line arrays that hang from the ceiling. Look at it as, how big is my job going to be and what type of music? If you're playing EDM a lot, if you're doing, nightclub style music play, you are going to need a lot of power. The thing is that a lot of times that needs to be bass, bottom end. You might decide to not just buy 2 full packages like this, or 4, your choice, but additional subs depending on the type of music you want to play. And if you're the type of customer who's bought a lot of speakers and, buy more powerful, more expensive speakers every time, but always finding yourself either blowing woofers, blowing tweeters, that sort of thing, unknowingly, accidental abuse happens all the time, you might be in this market. The problem that you might be having is that your speakers are just not big enough for the space. There's nothing wrong with saying, I need to have 4, or I need to have 8 speakers to fill an actual space that you're going to work in. I mean, if you're at a point where you're looking at a product like this, good for you. Business is good. You're getting the bigger shows, and you now need an actual speaker that's going to work for you. Now remember, a lot of people put this permanently in their actual dance clubs or in their halls because that's what they want. The type of customer base they have coming in, the type of music they're going to be playing on a regular basis requires them to have 2 or 4 full sets to actually do the job, which is very impressive. But that's the idea of buying this type of speaker, is to, put the sound in the room and still have it work day in, day out, whenever you need to run the system. A system that you only run at 75% is a system that's going to last you a very long time. This video is also sponsored by our second YouTube channel called RTS Robbins Testing Studio. You can find links for that and also an option to subscribe to that channel. There are shorter videos, there are right to the point reviews, some overviews on products, but they're really just shorter versions. So if you're looking for something different, maybe not even audio equipment, that's where we review all the other products that we actually offer or talk about through our Amazon affiliate page. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. However you do that, it's all around us. So like, comment, and subscribe, because it's YouTube. That's what we do on YouTube.
I came from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.